I was visiting Jack when he was a patient on one of the older people's wards at the West Suffolk Hospital. Jack is not his real name, and he wasn't particularly patient. He just wanted to go home. Jack enjoyed drawing and painting, and he showed me a picture that he'd done of some poppies. I thought I'd encourage him by telling him that Jesus was fond of poppies too. When he talked about the lilies of the field, I said, he probably meant poppies. We were sitting on one of the ward corridors at the time, and as we were talking, another patient, a woman, shuffled by on the opposite side. She must have heard our conversation, because as she drew away from us, she recited the full text of Jesus' words from the Sermon on the Mount in the Authorized Version. Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. She heard just a fragment of Jesus' words when I mentioned the lilies of the field, but it was enough to remind her of words that she'd known perhaps for most of her life. Her perfect recall tells us something about the nature of memory. Did my words simply trigger what was stored in her brain, or is there more to memory than what lies inside us? Where does my memory lie, I wonder? It's beside me as I'm writing this in words that I scribbled down earlier on a scrap of paper when I had a few moments to think about what to say. My memory is also in my diary too. I'd be lost without it. And it's on my computer in emails and documents that I've been storing for ages. More importantly, though, my memory is held by people that I've shared my life with. I had a vivid and slightly embarrassing experience of this when I last visited my daughter and her family. For some reason, we were talking about table manners, which hand to hold the knife and fork in, whether to stay at the table until everyone has finished eating, you know, the kind of thing. And then my 10-year-old granddaughter piped up as she looked me in the eye. Mummy says you were really strict when she was growing up. Had I forgotten that? Well, if I had, my daughter certainly hadn't. Our conversation showed that my memory is also held by her, and now by her daughter too. Just as the memory of the woman in hospital is also held in words from the Bible, and by people like me who quote them in her hearing. What does this teach us about losing our memory? I guess what frightens us most about dementia is not just the fear of becoming more forgetful and less capable, but of losing our minds, our very selves. But even when we can't remember like we used to, those who know us and love us can remember for us, because our memories are held in their memory too. Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. But I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Jesus saw something in poppies that speaks to us when we face the prospect of becoming more frail and forgetful. God remembers to clothe the grass of the field with the beauty and colour of these everyday flowers, and makes them even more glorious than King Solomon. We all lose the ability to remember like we once did, but our memories, which make up so much of what we are not simply stored inside us. They're held by those who know us and love us, and none more so than God, who, when all else fails, remains the ground of who we are and of all that we shall be.